I'm Francesca D'Amore, and let's queer up the worldview. Wall Street Journal report, OpenAI debated alerting police before British Columbia school shooting. OpenAI reviewed and debated whether to alert Canadian police about troubling ChatGPT conversations months before an 18-year-old trans girl was identified as the suspect in a deadly school shooting in British Columbia. The discussions followed interactions flagged by OpenAI's internal monitoring systems for references to gun violence. As reported by the Wall Street Journal, the user later identified by Canadian authorities as Jesse Van Rootselaar was a trans person and used ChatGPT in June last year to describe violent firearm scenarios over several days. Around a dozen employees reportedly examined whether the exchanges indicated a credible threat. Some urged leaders to notify law enforcement. OpenAI ultimately decided the activity did not meet its reporting threshold, which requires a, quote, credible and imminent risk of serious physical harm to others, end quote. The account was banned. On February 10th, Van Rootselaar was found dead at the scene of a school shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, from what police described as a self-inflicted injury. 8 people were killed and at least 25 were injured. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police named her as the suspect. OpenAI said it contacted the RCMP after the attack and is cooperating with investigators, adding, quote, "Our thoughts are with everyone affected by the Tumbler Ridge tragedy," end quote. I have mixed feelings about this. I mean, being monitored is kind of scary, but then there are some good times, good situations when being monitored can actually help the situation. I don't know if their monitoring was effective in this, because it seems like there were a lot of obvious red flags, right, that could have been followed through.
Yeah.
But, then you cross the lines of privacy, non-privacy, and it's a pretty tragic story. This is a tiny place. I think 2,400 people live in this small town. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
So sad.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, that the person was, a trans woman in this scenario. But what do y'all think about it?
I kind of read the story and I'm thinking, why do they have to report that OpenAI is monitoring? Because in a way, that's a safeguard, right? And I'm thinking, don't report on what they're doing as far as reporting to government officials, because this could have been used. If people, now that this is out in the media, everybody knows, oh, OpenAI will follow me and maybe recommend. It changes the landscape of maybe how people could use it that could cause harm in the future.
Yeah.
It kind of brings awareness in the wrong way, I think.
I think if somebody would have typed anything in this chat about the government, it would have been flagged immediately. There would have been no questions. Okay, this was months and months ago. This could have been stopped, right?
Right.
That's a system fail, 100%. Saying maybe we should have is a little too late for those 8 people that are now not with us anymore. Maybe something could have been done. Maybe she could have been found beforehand. Maybe we could have gotten her some mental health care.
Right.
All these maybes that we'll never know. There was a dog that was lost, and I guess somebody's Ring camera had found them, and that's also taking all that information and sending it to Big Brother. We're being monitored everywhere. We really are. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to give up. John?
I agree with you, but we're going to be behind the 8 ball on this, and we're going to be there's going to be a lag for a very long time, because information literally travels around the world in the time it took me to say that sentence. So we're not able to put the safeguards on, like when we only had, a printing press that still took, months to send something just to the next town. Then there was radio, and then there was television, but it all was very controlled, and it was never really in real time as far as the way it could spread, right? But we're past that, and we are going to, someone's going to be able to post and do something crazy before we can ever even get a handle on it. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that things like this are going to continue. OpenAI should have done something, but in the end, this is really a symptom of a large systemic problem.
I think we just jumped into this OpenAI way too fast. I really do. I don't think we did, like you said, have the safeguards around tools like this, because, you know, it just kind of like all of a sudden appeared in everybody the last few years, and everybody's utilizing it and putting in information, and you're not realizing maybe you're putting in too much or personal information and stuff. And I understand the other side too of using it, you know, for you know, a resource, you know, and maybe that we do need to put some safety monitors around it too. But, you know, it's just, it should have been thought out, I would think.
Too far gone at this point.
Yeah,
Edward,
it really is too far gone. But
well, folks, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.